Dan, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Now, you've built a broad portfolio of communications technology companies. Let's start with a brief overview of the businesses.
Sure. Right now there are 7. We are going to be looking at an 8th acquisition right now that I can't really speak to because it's non-public yet. But of the 8 we have, we've got a backhaul company called Dragonwave, been in business 20 years, second in America right now for backhaul telecom. We have a front haul company that we're closing the acquisition of, we've already disclosed, called Virtual Network Communications, and that handles the front edge or the access radios. And then in between, you've got a various litany of technologies required for an effective infrastructure. Those companies, we've got 2 that are disruptive R&D companies. We're putting the technology to use. Those are Lexstrom, which provides full duplex, and VIO, which is a silicon photonics company. In addition, we have an engineering services company that leads the engineering on everything called Silver Bullet. We have a battery backup power supply system for those we call EnduraPower. And we have the ability now to do rapid deployable communication networks with a company we own called Drone. So 3 of those companies have outside sales in addition to our own infrastructure plays, and that's helpful, but that's broad strokes on COMSovereign.
Well, let's talk about 2021. What does revenue look like for 2021 with all these companies integrated?
I think it's fairly safe to say, and it may not seem like a safe statement, but we're looking somewhere between 150 and 180 million in gross revenues for 2021. That's without a couple of large proposals that we've put in. If we're successful with those, it could be a multiple of that. So that's what we're looking at as we grow very rapidly.
What would you say is the essential value proposition then for investors today?
Wow. You know, the age-old one is buy low, sell high. I think right now we are so undervalued because no one really is aware of who we are, what we're doing. We've been very quiet putting together these companies. We've been operating off of our strategic maxim, which is to be the American pure play for telecom infrastructure. And I think if people look, they'll see that there is no other telecom company that can do everything from A to Z. Every other company, if it's American, and most of them are not, every other American company in telecom does bits and pieces. We portend to be able to do the entire infrastructure, 4G and 5G, and we're very confident in that capability.
Well, how big is the overall market opportunity for your platform?
You know, just in 2020, this year, we're addressing several markets, and those are combined about $1.2 trillion for 2020, just those markets. And the average CAGR right now, or growth rate, annual growth rate's about 17% on those industries. So we feel we are perfectly positioned right now with technology that we have, with a management that's second to none, and of course the markets. So I think that's the value and the power play here.
Let's talk about this transition to 5G. Explain what 5G is and where you are in that paradigm.
Probably the most mistaken thing right now on Wall Street is that if it says 5G, you should buy into it because that's what's coming. The reality of it is most analysts now recognize that to have 5G be effective, we're going to need a lot more 4G LTE Advanced systems up. That's why this year it's projected over 18 billion will be spent on 4G infrastructure, only 4.7 on 5G. That crossover doesn't occur until 2024. So as 5G becomes a reality, and for it to become a reality means a huge proliferation of radios to higher frequency radios closer together. They have to be line of sight. So 5G really is not just a layer on 4G. 4G is an important leg of that table, but 5G is so much more because it has to be standardized. To be able to connect to all of your front edge devices and driverless cars, it has to be standardized. They have to be high frequency radios. There has to be a ton of them, not 10 times more. I'm talking 100 times more. And that's what 5G will be developed into. The last standards for 5G aren't even developed until about December 2021 is what they project. So to have a complete 5G infrastructure before then, somebody's selling something they don't quite really have. To invest, you want to invest in a 4G company. that has 5G capabilities, that's what we find ourselves excelling in right now.
So you've made a lot of acquisitions. What's your criteria in evaluating potential opportunities?
Those acquisitions have to fill a void that we don't already have or can do organically very quickly. They have to accrete to the overall goal, which is very sophisticated, top of the line, top technology infrastructure for telecom. It has to be US based because we are US centric, US made, US supply chain, and has to fit those categories. And of course, helps if it's already projecting high or realizing high revenues and projecting even greater ones as they tie in.
Okay. Talk to us about some of the key players on your management team.
A couple of our directors, you can look at them and tell. James Marks is a contributing military analyst to CNN. You've got Richard Berman, who was Director of the Year in New York. Brent Davies, CPA. We've got some incredible guys. David Aguilar, Chief Aguilar, was Chief of the Border Patrol, built it from 30,000 to 60,000 people, largest law enforcement agency in the world, in fact. Bob Hopkins, who leads our Lexstrom, he was a nuclear physicist, came out of University of Arizona to the Navy. When we picked him up and recruited him away from Sprint, he was the head of microwave infrastructure for Sprint. We've got Mohan Tomasetti coming in, who's led Nortel and Sprint T-Mobile shops, was over at Light Squared, when it was up and coming. So he's very renowned. We have what we call a strict no jerk rule to begin with. So we hire only those very best guys that fit in. And I will tell you, our management team, having been in squadrons, militarily for an entire career up until I retired many years ago, it was very tight fraternity and sorority of people in there. And that's what we're finding here. Every single one of our managers has had incredible success in their own careers and their own businesses. Most of them are entrepreneurs on their own. They've built and sold companies. We have a huge cast of PhD engineers and leaders that would just wow you. And to see them work seamlessly together, we are a holding company, but it doesn't operate that way. We have 7 companies, soon 8. All of those just tie together so incredibly tight to create a wonderful organization. So we've got top-notch people, and they've all come together because they know what's coming.
Superb management team. To recap today, Dan, what's the main takeaway for investors?
Main takeaway is that we are very, very undervalued right now. We have some very exciting things coming up very quickly in the next 2 to 3 weeks. I would encourage people to look at the company, look at the management, look at the markets, and look at our technologies. We are just starting our ramp, and it's going to be an incredible ramp. I think we'll be one of the fastest growth companies in America this year.
Dan, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Dave.